Hey guys, in this part we talk about form in HTML. The form element. The HTML form element is used to create an HTML form for user input. So I create a form tag, and inside the form we create form elements. The form element is a container for different types of input elements, such as text fields, checkboxes, radio buttons, submit buttons, and etc. The input element. The HTML input element is the most used form element. An input element can be displayed in many ways depending on the type attribute. Text fields. The input with text type defines a single line input field for text input. So I create an input tag and set the text to the type and set ID equal to first name and set name equal to first name and Ctrl S, Ctrl R. We have a text input and we can type in the text input. The label element. The label tag defines a label for many form elements. The label element is useful for screen readers users because the screen reader will read out loud the label when the user focuses on the input element. The label element also helps users who have difficulty clicking on very small regions such as radio buttons or checkboxes, because when the user clicks the text within the label element, it toggles the radio button or checkbox. The for attribute of the label tag should be equal to the ID attribute of the input element to bind them together. So I create a label element and close it and equal, and content is first name, sorry, and the for attribute is first name must be equal to inputs ID. So see the result. First name is the label and we have text input. Radio buttons. The input with radio type defines a radio button. Radio buttons let the user select one of a limit number of choices. So I create a char tag and create a p tag. Choose your favorite web language and create a form tag and create an input tag with type radio and ID is empty, name is empty, and value is empty. Ctrl C, Ctrl V and V, and HTML, CSS and JS. Ctrl C, V, copy, paste and paste and paste, and I create labels and for attribute paste and paste, and HTML, CSS and JS, Control S and controller. Oh, we should fill the content JS, controller, HTML, CSS and JS. I click in JS, or sorry, we should change name to, for example, fab language, and yeah, controller. I click on HTML or CSS or JS, and I click on label. Oh, we have an additional S. Click HTML, JS, CSS, and yeah. Checkboxes. The input with checkbox type defines a checkbox. Checkboxes let a user select 0 or more options of a limited number of choices. So I copy this form and HR tag, paste, and so for example I remove the label and I have a bike, and so checkbox ID is VHL1 and name is copy, paste and paste, and so I remove the HTML, VHL1, VHL2 and 3, and yeah, and 3, 2, change values, yeah. So I have a bike, I have a car, and I have a boat. So Control S and controller. I have a bike, click, so change the radio to checkbox, and yeah, controller. I have a bike, I have a car, and I have a boat. I don't have a boat, and don't check it. The submit button. The input with submit type defines a button for submitting the form data to a form handler. The form handler is typically a file on the server with a script for processing input data. The form handler is specified in the forms action attribute. So I copy this form and paste and set the action equal to, for example, action, and I copy this form element, paste, and create another form element, last name, and last name, and last name, and yeah, and create a input tag with submit type, and value is submit. Control S, Control R. So my first name is Mahdi and last name, just example, and click on the submit. So we have Mahdi first name and KH last name, and the name attribute for input. Notice that each input field must have a name attribute to be submitted. If the name attribute is omitted, the value of the input field will not be sent at all. So for example, I remove the name attribute for last name and see the result. So back, reload, and so fill the text inputs, submit, and we don't have last name.